Hey everyone, Jay Sherm here. In today's episode, I have Dr. James Richardson. He's an exponential growth strategist. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, Jason, for having me.
No problem, man. And today's topic, we're going to talk about how to bootstrap your business and get exponential growth. It's funny because the name of this podcast is Strap on Your Boots, which is a play on the word bootstrap, right? That's where I got it. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, how you became an exponential growth strategist. Like, how does one become that?
Well, it really was a coincidence of some client projects I did at my former consulting firm where we stumbled on this fact. And the fact that we stumbled on in the world of food and beverage, early stage brands, was that the brands that like Kind Bar and Vita Coco and Skinny Pop that were coming out of nowhere and surprising and embarrassing the industry, honestly, by getting to 100 million to 300 million really fast. Well, just out of nowhere, when we deconstructed how they did that, we wound up with this crazy pattern, which is they all had the same top line curve.
Okay. And what is that?
It was all mathematically exponential. It's basically the first half of the sigmoid curve that you study in business school, which is, this growth of a very small revenue base in the beginning. But because you're doubling every year, what happens is 7 years down the road, that doubling turns into an explosion. And then everyone says, oh, wow, where did you come from? Well, I've actually been here for 10 years and you were ignoring me. But now it's too late to chase me because I own the innovation. So go screw yourself. So that's basically, what these guys did, Dan Levetsky and all these folks, and they did it through a patient, organic go-to-market strategy, which is built on superb.
All right, so a lot of the things you're talking about, I actually don't really understand most of it because I don't come from a business world. So you're mentioning a lot of lingo that kind of goes with, I guess, with a certain industry. I'm more of a technologist. Yeah. I've done marketing, I've done startups, I've done a lot of growth hacks and branding. So let's try to dumb this down for people who don't come from that industry. Give me another example of what these companies did in layman's terms for a 4-year-old kid. What did they do?
Well, it started with design. So it started with product design that was meeting a very simple unmet need at the time in a particular category of good. I happen to work in a very hyper-competitive industry. It's oversupplied with options. So the amount of effort it takes just from the design side in terms of the packaging and what's in the food or beverage is enormous. And it's usually where everyone fails.
Right. So we're talking about like basic A/B testing, focus groups, what looks good, what's appealing to people, what has that impulse grab buy in the shelves, like all those types of things.
Yeah. I mean, I think the difference between the problem in hyper-competitive industries like mine is you actually can't figure that out in advance. That's a myth. I used to lead those projects and they mostly failed.
So you figure it out as
consumers. You can't do it. That's all bullshit. That's all bullshit that market research companies sell to big companies to make money. It doesn't work. It never has. When it does, it's not better than a random mathematical coin toss. So if you want to do better than random, you have to actually finish your design in the market. And that's what most of these guys that I just mentioned earlier, that's what they ended up doing, was that they iterated in response to feedback. So they were essentially co-creating their innovations in the first couple of years. Maybe it was just the packaging they changed. Maybe it was the formula they tweaked. Maybe it was the package symbolism. Really, really detailed stuff. Because unfortunately, that's how it's very small changes that unleash exponential growth in my industry. It's not iPhone level user interface innovation.
Yeah, and it's very typical for a brand to come out with like various iterations of their logo or the packaging or what type of bullet points should be on the back or whatever. And so I get that part. And let's say that, let's bring this back down to planet Earth to early stage startups who have not made their first dollar. And what is the strategy they should take to come up with the branding for, say, their packaging or for their website or for their app?
Well, I think that the most basic form of research you do in advance is that you you study the shelf, digital or otherwise, in your category, so that you know exactly what is different about your innovation and what's different that matters. So in my book, Ramping Your Brand, I walk people through how to deconstruct your category positioning, no matter where you are, using sort of tools from social science analysis of human cultures, because we're humans. Society is driven by symbolic communication, and marketing is the exact same thing. It's just a capitalistly intense version of symbolic communication.
So it sounds
a ruthless agenda behind it.
Yeah. So it sounds a little bit like learning about your competitors, researching what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, how you differentiate from them, how you can position yourself in the same place that they are, but to stand out, right? These are the types of things you got to look at.
Yeah, I mean, what I talk about, the big thing I talk about in my book is you need to find an innovation, or you need to take your innovation and you need to find the category. That's the better way to do it. Find the category and the positioning in the universe, the cultural universe, where you can convince consumers that, hey, I'm the new modern way to achieve this X or Z outcome in your everyday life. And if you can make that connection unconsciously in milliseconds, and that's what it takes, then you can unleash exponential growth. If people have to get educated, if they don't understand why they should care, you're not done.
You lost the battle.
Yeah. So this is why you can't do market research to forecast your gorgeous creation in advance, because until you get out into the market, you won't really be able to finalize where you fit in the ecosystem. Because I guarantee you, I've worked with too many folks, you have underthought something.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. I've seen enough Shark Tank. I've seen enough Shark Tank episodes where they pick up the package that the entrepreneur put in front of them, and they say, like, I don't know what this is selling me. I don't know what this is. Like, this isn't telling me that you're selling, this tchotchke. So you need to redo your brand. And that's a big problem for a lot of people, is they're not sure what to put. So we've already discussed deconstructing, figuring out what your competitors are doing, right? Let's say you did figure out your branding strategy. You got your packaging. It looks good. It's selling well in stores in like a beta test, we'll say. How do you, and to you, it sounds like it's real easy. Oh, exponential growth. But for most of us, it's not that, it's not, let's just put it this way. It's not easy, right? Getting exponential growth is probably one of the most difficult things to do, because you're dealing with a saturated market in most cases. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with money issues because you have to pay for marketing, and I can go on a whole list of other things. So tell me, how do you navigate this? How do you actually get that exponential growth?
The reason I reached out to you, Jason, for your show is that here's why this works for bootstrapping entrepreneurs, ironically. Is that if you are patient enough in the first year or two to finalize your design and really nail it and find a fan base that's buying it compulsively, and that's the world I'm in, is repeat purchase driven brand building, because otherwise they're dead.
Okay.
You're fucking dead. So, I mean,
beep.
Yeah, there's no QVC road to glory in food and beverage. That's a bunch of bullshit. So you could sell $1 million worth of like ramen or something once. but if you want to make this work, you've got to have repeat purchasers who are just rabid fans. And you know what those people do? They tell everyone to go buy it for you.
Right.
And it costs nothing. It costs nothing.
Word of mouth.
This keeps happening. It keeps happening. And no one wants to believe it because there's no scientific way to stick everyone in a matrix and prove that the word of mouth happened, right? There's no surveillance technique to prove it, but we can measure it indirectly. So we can measure it because the brand has no marketing budget. It did nothing. And the velocity and the only other variable, which you can measure inferentially through surveys, is, oh shit, people are, the net promoter score is 96. Everyone's talking to 10 to 20 people about it. And this is what drove Kind Bar and Skinny Pop. And again, in one city, like fanatical word of mouth, a big brand advertiser wouldn't be able to measure that. They make fun of this shit. They laugh at it.
Right, because they just throw money at the wall. Yeah.
Right. Well, $50 million will get a lot of Oreo packages sold when it's done scientifically, right? But that's not what we're talking about here.
So let's
you can bootstrap this basically by designing something that gets your fans to be the marketing team, and that actually is the hardest thing.
Yeah, and going back to bootstrapping, I mean, I've run a lot of startups, and it's always the best way to do it is organic growth, word of mouth, referrals, friends and family, social networks, that kind of thing. What are let's figure out here the top 3 things that you would tell an entrepreneur who's listening to my show or watching this video right now, and they want to get that word of mouth, and they want to get their first 1,000 customers,
Yep.
and they want to get brand recognition without spending any money. What are the top 3 things you would tell them to do?
First of all, they need to talk to 10 to 15 of their repeat purchasing customers, their fans, the people who they know love them either from some kind of evidence. Get them on the phone. Talk to them for 20, 30 minutes, ask open-ended questions to understand how they use the product or service and then why it matters to them. And really push on the why, like a 3-year-old. Why, mommy? Why, mommy? And eventually they'll get irritated and they'll tell you the God's honest truth they were suppressing. This is social science 101, folks. They'll tell you something really probably, it could even be crass. Like, because I want to get laid. That's why I want the sexy alcohol drink.
Right.
In my hand. But they're not going to tell you that up front because they want to seem all, polished and whatever. So when you push them and get the why, then you can say, oh, we're driven by sex. I'm just making this up. This is a big thing with alcohol brands. I'm driven by sexual, interaction and dating. So then where do I need to insert myself as number 2, Jason?
Right.
What social venues do I insert my brand?
Not
with
obvious.
not with a big brand, not with a big megaphone, but I just sort of slip myself in. So maybe you go to nightclubs, maybe you go to music venues. Then you do 3, you do the hard, painful, annoying crap work that nobody wants to do, Jason, which is sit there on Google, find the music venues, go humiliate yourself by introducing yourself to everyone, getting rejected by 90%. No, this is why it never happens, is because nobody wants to do step number 3.
Right. No, nobody wants to do hard work is what it comes down to. It's tedious. It's tedious.
I've proven it in my book. All the brands I talk about in my book, they all did this. They all sent field teams
of course,
out into the universe and inserted themselves in real social venues. They made the brand appear from the bottom up as a cool, hip thing.
That's what Red Bull's a good example.
Exactly.
I mean, they were at every single college. They were at every single event handing out free Red Bull cans for years.
And they did it. They had enough money coming from Europe to do it at scale, but they still did it from the grassroots.
Yeah. They were getting kids to go out there wearing outfits and handing out free drinks nonstop. That's the
Vitamin Water was one of the first in my industry that did it in the early 2000s. They had, they don't do this anymore, but they because there's no need. But in the beginning, to get the awareness built and to get the trust built and just the coolness built, they had these things called hydrology vans. They were vans with beer taps on the outside.
Nice.
And they used to park in like Venice Beach or other places, in Santa Monica, and then have these little guerrilla events where they would just park it next to food trucks or something, and then they would just give people samples out of the side of the truck. Right. Yeah. So
instead of bottles,
then it becomes something to talk about. And this was before social media, right?
Right.
There was no Instagram effect on top of this. This was literally people saying, "Oh my God, you got to go get lunch down here because this thing called the hydrology van."
That's cool.
And it's all made up crap, right? I mean, that's the funniest thing. But this is how you insert yourself as a cultural player, and that's the thing that any brand can do. You don't have to have money to do that.
Right.
That's the beauty of it.
That's awesome.
Now,
and
you do have to have some social skills.
Yeah, of course. I mean, nowadays you got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. You got so many different places to go to, and you have to really be on all of them. I'm in the middle of launching a bunch of projects, and I'm using all of them, and I'm pushing them out on all of them, and I'm seeing results on all of them. So you really have to be. It's an all-in approach, But once you find that one niche that really works for you, you got to double down on that one. So you mentioned your book a lot. For the listeners here, tell us a bit about what they can find in your book, how they can find you, what kind of stuff they can expect from looking you up.
So, the book is Ramping Your Brand, and it's for consumer brands, folks in selling stuff that sells at Target. That's what I say, basically. And it's on Amazon. I have sales and stuff every once in a while through the year, but you can get it there. If you're interested in what I do, you can go to premiumgrowsolutions.com and that's where you learn about how I work with clients. That's a site primarily for founders and entrepreneurs in my area who have read the book. So, but I guarantee you, even if you're not in consumer products, the book will teach you some things about how new brands are built, whether it's Apple or anything else. Some of these laws just are pan industry for sure.
Awesome. So we got feedback, iterate, differentiate, and then tedious work.
You have to go out and promote your business.
Right.
The problem, I think, is that social media has encouraged a lot of laziness.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you probably witnessed. And the people who win on social media are doing the street version of what I just described. They're just as patient and persistent, and and everyone else is trying to pay some Twitter agency to get them 30,000 followers.
Right.
All of them garbage.
Right. you got to do it. You got to do it yourself. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Well, James, thanks a lot for coming today. I think a lot of people learned a bit about how to get exponential growth on this episode. So thanks again. And as always, we will see everybody in next week's episode. See you later.